I was cleaning my desk the other day and contemplating whether I still wanted to make this video, since, in full honesty, this craft didn't turn out quite like I wanted. But, in the words of Gandhi, if you disappoint yourself, share it on YouTube. The plan was to make a film frame of the tunnel from Coraline.
The one behind the wallpaper?
Yeah, that one. A build I was actually quite excited for, and a nice appetizer as I continued to work up my courage to one day build the Pink Palace. But due to some lack of insight that I shall divulge throughout this video, it didn't work as well as I had hoped. But I guess you'll have to see it for yourself. Welcome to Midnight Hobbies, and today I'll be building the Coraline Tunnel as a film frame. Starting with a photo frame, I peeled off its skin to find this one was not made with love. The warning signs came early. And then gutted its internal organs, leaving me with this wonderful template to work with. After finding a suitable piece of foam board, I sketched out the size needed for the wall, and sliced off the excess which I used to construct the floor. I gave it a back leg from more foam board for some stability, and if you're wondering why I'm giving the frame a floor, it's so I can work the forced perspective of the tunnel behind the doorway. Well, that's the plan at least. I then ripped off the paper coverings, which just wouldn't come off, and penciled a wood grain texture on the front end of the foam to act as the floorboards. And with that back wall piece from earlier, I sketched out the size of the door I wanted, before realising that's not what I wanted and sketched it larger. The door was removed before I gave it a test in the frame, and for you keen observers, yes, I did realise I was putting the door on the wrong side, but don't worry, the door knew it too. There we go. As much as I was confident at the time, I think this was mistake number one. Having this back wall so flush to the front does give it the appearance of just being the back panel of the frame, which mildly confuses the brain when it sees the tunnel. But what I should have done was more or less built the whole room within the frame with the tunnel up the back so you could gather the scope of the space. But c'est la vie, it's time to make the door. So after I removed the paper backing, I covered it with some good old reliable cardboard packaging. I drew the design onto the cardboard, and once I was seeing double, they were stuck in place. I added a little keyhole you probably won't end up seeing, and then began building up the trim of the wall with more packaging offcuts and strips of crafting sticks.
It's a dowsing rod.
Oh, my bad. I tried it in the space again, and would you look at that? It's me convincing myself this was going to look good. With more packaging card and the door as a reference, I began sketching out an oversized onion ring to act as the first section of the tunnel. I wanted my version of the tunnel to be made of gradually smaller but separate circles to not only give the illusion of depth, but to also keep it easier to paint instead of having to shove a brush into a cone. So with that in mind, I sliced at the floor so that the first ring could properly frame the inside of the door. Perfect. And to give it its signature wavy texture, I gave it some foil skin, before repeating the same for the rest of these donuts. Wow, looks just like the movie. Moving it all outside, I mixed up some plaster and paint that was used to coat over each piece, giving the wall and door its, well, plastered look, and to smooth out the wrinkles of the tunnel rings and to keep them firm. And once these snacks were nice and crispy, I moved on to filling this naked wall with wallpaper. It was trimmed to fit, and then after grabbing my other eyeball, I watered down some PVA glue and stuck the pieces in place, adding mild tears around the edges for where the paper would have been torn. I went in with some boring boy blue on the tunnel rings, blending in some purple at random intervals for variety's sake and to pay tribute to the shifting colours from the film. I also added a light blue dry brush as to further accentuate the motion and to punctuate those tiny details. The trim got a dull grey with a tasty dry brush before I moved on to painting the inside of the door with varying layers of brown. To spruce it all up, I gave the wall and door a simple grime up before moving onto the floor with a sad black and grey palette. Okay, the pieces look nice so far, so I began building the tunnel, and after sculpting this teeny tiny door for the back end, I glued it in place and it was done. Okay, so I think it doesn't entirely work because there's too much dead space up the top, the perspective being too close to the door is confusing, and the contrast between the texture of the tunnel and the outer world are working against each other, but not in a fun way. So I did cover up the back with black paper to eliminate light spilling in, and weathered the wallpaper some more to alleviate the sore of the dead space, which I do think helped the piece overall, but still wasn't exactly what I'd wished for. But funnily enough, I think that's what makes me like it more. I've been very lucky so far in terms of my crafts working out even though I never have a plan, as well as how my YouTube has been going for a channel that's only been out for a couple months. So even if this one's a little off kilter but still a piece of genuine effort, that's a pretty good piece of craft to me. Wishing you all the best everyone, and I very much look forward to sharing my next effort with you all in the next video. I'll see you then.